For millions who grew up in the late 1970s and 1980s, 8 is Enough was more than just a TV show. It was a weekly ritual, an appointment with America's favorite family. The Bradfords were the family viewers wished they could join, chaotic yet loving, funny yet grounded, and most of all real. 8 children navigated life together under the watchful eye of their patient father, Tom Bradford. Among them was Mary, the eldest daughter, the aspiring doctor whose calm presence made her the soul of the family. With a thoughtful smile and quiet strength, she became the sister everyone wished they had. The actress who embodied her, Lani O'Grady, brought warmth and authenticity that radiated through the screen. She was a comforting presence in living rooms across America, but behind her serene smile, far from the polished sets of Hollywood, Lani was fighting a private war. It was a battle so terrifying and consuming that it would ultimately take her life. Lani O'Grady's story isn't simply another tale of Hollywood fame gone wrong. It is darker, more complex, and deeply personal. Long before cameras rolled, she was already waging a silent war against an invisible enemy, her own mind. Doctors, prescriptions, and a medical culture quick to medicate but slow to understand compounded her struggle, dismantling her life piece by piece. This is the story of Lani O'Grady's life and her tragic unraveling. A star is born into Hollywood pressure. Lani was born Lanita Rose Agrati in 1954 into a family deeply embedded in Hollywood. Her mother, Mary Grady, was one of the most respected children's talent agents in the industry. Casting directors relied on her agency for decades, and Mary was known as a powerhouse, protective of her clients yet demanding of her own children. Lani's older brother, Don Grady, had already been a Disney Mouseketeer and starred in My Three Sons. For Lani, show business wasn't a choice. It was the air she breathed. Surrounded by headshots, scripts, and the constant buzz of auditions, she grew up immersed in an industry that celebrated image but demanded perfection. Yet long before Hollywood pressures took hold, another shadow loomed. At just 13, Lani experienced her first full-blown panic attack. Her heart raced, sweat poured, and she felt certain she was about to die. In the 1960s, terms like panic attack or anxiety disorder weren't widely recognized, leaving her isolated in fear. This wasn't a fleeting teenage phase. It was the start of a lifelong battle with panic disorder and agoraphobia. Fame lights a fire already burning. By her teenage years, Lani was working professionally, landing small roles in shows like Harry O. Then, in 1977, she auditioned for ABC's new family drama 8 is Enough. She won the part of Mary Bradford, and overnight her life transformed. The series became a sensation, instantly making its young cast household names. To the public, Lani seemed composed and graceful. Castmates remembered her as prepared, kind, and professional. Dick Van Patten, who played her TV father, recalled her sweetness and talent with affection. But behind the scenes, her anxiety worsened. The grueling pace of television, long hours, public scrutiny, and endless demands was a nightmare for someone silently battling panic disorder. Lani often suffered attacks mid-scene, her heart pounding, vision narrowing, and memory lapses leaving her unable to recall filming. She confessed later to experiencing blackouts, where entire scenes vanished from her memory. Agoraphobia soon compounded her suffering. While millions saw her as a confident young woman, she increasingly dreaded stepping out of her dressing room. The sound stage's vast space and glaring lights triggered overwhelming fear. It was a cruel paradox. She was broadcast into 20 million homes weekly while becoming a prisoner of her own shrinking world. The prescription trap. During this period, Lani was introduced to Valium. In the late 1970s, benzodiazepines were hailed as miracle drugs, prescribed casually for anxiety, stress, or insomnia. To Lani, the first pill felt like salvation. The fear receded, the panic calmed. "Oh my God, this is the way I'm supposed to feel," she later recalled. But relief came at a devastating cost. Valium was not the safe, non-addictive solution it was marketed to be. It was the beginning of a spiral that would define her adulthood. When 8 is Enough ended its 5-year run in 1981, the structure that had anchored her collapsed. Without work to occupy her, anxiety returned with greater force. She withdrew from Hollywood, appearing only in reunion specials. She married and followed her mother's path, working as a talent agent. For brief periods, stability seemed possible, but her reliance on medication deepened. Over 2 decades, Lani cycled through doctors, therapists, and prescriptions. Antidepressants, mood stabilizers like lithium, and ever higher doses of benzodiazepines became her daily reality. At some point, she was labeled bipolar, though whether that diagnosis was accurate or a misinterpretation of drug effects remains unclear. What is certain is that her brain chemistry suffered irreparable harm. The invisible prison. In interviews during the 1990s, Lani bravely described the torment she lived with. Driving on freeways, she often had to pull over. Trips to the grocery store ended with her abandoning carts to flee. Panic made her feel like she was dying. Agoraphobia became so severe that she sometimes couldn't step outside her house, too terrified even to check her mailbox. Her marriage collapsed, relationships strained, and her world grew smaller. Mary Grady, her formidable mother, tried to help with financial and emotional support, but even she was powerless against her daughter's invisible illness. Hollywood's culture of perfection only worsened the burden. Admitting weakness was taboo. Her castmates from 8 is Enough remained largely unaware of the depths of her struggle. They remembered her as sweet but quiet, never realizing how much pain she hid. The illness itself thrived in secrecy. The most haunting cost was memory loss. Long-term benzodiazepine use damaged her ability to recall life events, erasing chunks of her past. Even her years on 8 is Enough, the role that defined her, blurred into fragments she could barely remember. She was not only losing her health but her identity. A systemic failure. It is tempting to blame drugs alone for her demise, but that oversimplifies the tragedy. Lani was not abusing substances recreationally. She was following medical advice. Doctors prescribed pills freely, increasing doses when symptoms persisted, layering medications when side effects appeared. She became trapped in a cycle of medically induced addiction. The 1970s and 80s medical culture treated anxiety with prescriptions rather than understanding. Benzodiazepines were marketed aggressively as safe, while their potential for dependence remained downplayed. Withdrawal from long-term use could be more dangerous than heroin detox, often leaving permanent neurological scars. In this sense, Lani was not just a victim of anxiety but of a flawed system. She trusted doctors to help, yet the very treatments deepened her illness. Was it ignorance, negligence, or both? Likely a mix. Psychiatry was still in its infancy in understanding panic disorders, and patients like Lani were unwitting experiments in an uncontrolled trial. A voice before its time. In the 1990s, Lani began speaking publicly about her struggles. Though her warnings about prescription dependency fell largely on deaf ears, they foreshadowed the opioid and prescription drug epidemic that would later dominate headlines. She was a canary in the coal mine, a high-profile casualty of a system that created addicts under the guise of treatment. Her story also contributed, however quietly, to shifting attitudes toward mental health. In her era, conditions like panic disorder or agoraphobia carried deep stigma, especially for public figures. Speaking about them risked careers. Yet Lani found the courage to break her silence, helping lay groundwork for the openness celebrities show today when discussing anxiety, depression, or addiction. The final chapter. On September 25, 2001, Lani O'Grady was found dead in her Valencia, California home. She was only 46. The coroner confirmed she had died of multiple drug intoxication, a lethal mix of Prozac and Vicodin. Her war was finally over. The tragedy of Lani's life resists simple explanations. Fame did not destroy her. Her struggles began years before. Addiction alone did not define her. She was a patient following medical orders. Her story is a perfect storm: childhood anxiety, Hollywood pressures, the weight of perfection, and a medical culture too eager to prescribe and too slow to understand. Legacy of a fragile strength. Despite everything, Lani endured. She survived 26 years after 8 is enough ended, longer than many in her circumstances might have. She fought for her sanity, her life, and moments of peace. Perhaps the most meaningful way to remember her is not as another Hollywood casualty, but as a woman of hidden resilience. Her story urges empathy for those behind the masks of fame and compels us to question the easy fixes sold in little brown bottles. Lani O'Grady gave millions a sense of comfort as Mary Bradford, but she could not find the same peace for herself. Her life reminds us of the silent battles people fight, the systemic failures that worsen them, and the courage it takes to keep going. She deserved a better ending.